when the Iron Curtain disappeared, when the division of Europe ceased to exist, at least in this in the form that we knew from before 1989, Europe as such, Europe as a whole, was faced with a new problem, with a new dilemma. How to create this new identity? How to build a collective identity of Europe, not divided anymore into East and West? In relation to whom the new Europe will construct its own identity? Who will be the significant other for all Europeans? And this new identity, of course, would require the answer to the question, what do we all have in common as Europeans? Something that unites the West, the Center, and the East, wherever the new borders are going to be. Where these new borders are going to be. Who is, therefore, who will be on the other side of this new border of Europe, especially the eastern border of Europe, because this was what we were all concerned with. Is there anything like a natural, obvious place where the new eastern border of Europe would be located? What about Ukraine? What about the Baltic states? What about Belarus? What about Turkey? What about Russia? So the answer to this question would have a very powerful impact on the future of Europe and how we conceptualize the place of Europe on the global scale in relation to other parts of the world, and also what would be the content, what would be inside these boundaries, what would be the content of European identity. Because we have to think in terms of what do we all have in common, on which basis, on which platform we can build our identity, in such a way that there will be a meaningful, understandable differences between Europeans, all of them, all of the new Europe, and whoever will be on the other side of the new border of Europe. Of course, it was very problematic and very complicated, because if we looked at Europe after the beginning of the 90s, after the big change, it was clear that there are very deep and very significant differences. Economically, obviously, politically, in spite of declarations and aspirations and tendencies, it was clear that there would be many years before, if at all, post-communist societies would be able to completely integrated in European democratic society, in European market economy. Now, from the perspective of many years later, we can say that this integration was largely successful, but at the beginning it was not so clear. So it was not clear who will be eventually invited to join the European communities, the European Union. The negotiation with 10 members who joined in 2004 took many years, then even a bit longer in case of Romania, Bulgaria, and Croatia, and now we are still having questions to answer. What about the Balkans? What about Ukraine? What about Turkey? And so on and so forth. So it is all the question of what do we have in common? Which values, rights, principles, cultural, political, economic, unite us all, and what is the essence, what is the meaning of the difference? So that we can say, we are democratic, we are respecting human rights, we are market-oriented, and then on the other side, there is another world which is different. Of course, we can look for traditional values, religion, elements of heritage to try to answer the question. And obviously, the way we define Europe in many ways refers to the past, refers to our understanding of heritage. Greece was accepted into the European communities in spite of obvious economic and political complications, because it was so natural that Greece, because of its place in European heritage, in the European history, deserved to be in Europe, so that it would be difficult to imagine even Europe to be complete without Greece. Whether the same can be said about Poland or some other parts of the East, that's problematic in the mind of an average educated European, if such a creature exists. You know, what is natural, what goes without saying, what can be taken for granted. Of course, Christianity is a difficult problem regarding identity, because on the one hand we can say Europe is Christian, or Europe has been historically largely, never completely, but largely Christian. But there are many reasons why Christianity perhaps should not be seen as the basis of European integration, because of the principle of secularity of the public sphere, which at least some Europeans believe to be an important principle on which Europe is built, post-Enlightenment idea of separation of the sacred and the secular. Then, of course, the very significant issue of the relation between Christianity and Islam, and we not only have many Muslim Europeans already in Europe, but also we don't want, I suppose, to construct European collective identity on in relation to Islam as a most powerful symbol of division, because that's a potentially conflict generating. And also, one should not also overlook the fact that there is no one Christianity, that there are many branches of Christianity. There is Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy and United religions and Protestant religions, and they all give different answers regarding the most fundamental questions which we ask when we discuss especially the functioning of religion in the public sphere. So there's no such thing as the one Christian position regarding relation between church and state, the model of the family, the human rights, gender, position of the clergy, and all other very important moral and social issues. So it's very hard. On the other hand, of course, we very often do refer to culture, to cultural heritage when we think about collective identity.